Donald Trump wants at least $10 billion from a media company. This comes after he got two separate settlements, which many people believe was to court favor with Trump for things such as mergers. But let's see what his arguments are this time that he wants $10 billion at least. And yes, that is billion with a B. Grounded in facts, shaped by experience, and defined by editorial standards that don't waver, Dow Jones and Company Inc., the publishers of the Wall Street Journal newspaper, proudly proclaims this maxim across the banner of its website, holding itself out to the world as an honest and forthcoming broker of newsworthy material, and yet defendants' malicious, deliberate, and despicable actions that give rise to this action show plainly that they do not practice what they preach. On July 17th, 2025, defendants, I'm not going to butcher the names, co authored and published an article largely focused on President Trump that falsely claimed that he authored, drew, and signed a card to wish the late and utterly disgraced, I really thought I was going to say late great, but Jeffrey Epstein, a happy 50th birthday. To an attempt and intrinsically link President Trump to Epstein, the defendants falsely claim that salacious language of the letter contained within a hand-drawn naked woman, which was created with a heavy marker. Worse, defendants falsely represented as fact that President Trump drew the naked woman's breasts and signed his name Donald below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. Yeah, that's the claim. Perplexingly, however, the letter is a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein, written in the third person. Indeed, defendants provide a series of quotes from the non-existent letter, claiming that the letter was written in third person, beginning with a voiceover interluding a conversation, followed by a purported dialogue between President Trump and Epstein, as if they were characters in a play. And this is where things get interesting, because they say this letter doesn't exist, right? As long as they don't settle, there's going to be discovery, right? So we would get to know. On one hand, defendants falsely passed off as fact that President Trump in 2003 wrote and drew and signed this letter. And on the other hand, defendants failed to attach the letter, failed to attach the alleged drawing, and failed to show proof that President Trump authored or signed any such letter, and failed to explain how this purported letter was obtained. So here's something I do want to mention. This part here, I'm wondering. Like they follow it with the reason for those failures is because no authentic letter or drawing exists. Defendants concocted the story to malign President Trump's character, integrity, and deceptively portray him in a false light. So what if they release the letter? Like, we have to either assume that they know Trump is suing the media and they're going to just completely blatantly lie about him, or they have the letter. It's one or the other. They're arguing here they don't have one. Now, if you're wondering and you don't know, what are the politics of the Wall Street Journal? They are right wing. In fact, the guy who owns all of this, and I think probably later they mention it that Trump tried to get him to kill the story, he was with Trump on Sunday at the FIFA World Cup in the VIP box with him. So, like, this isn't like leftist deep state plant. This is like his buddy's company, it seems. Despite the glaring failures in journalistic ethics and standards of appropriate reporting, the defendants, Dow Jones and News Corp, at the direction of defendants Murdoch and Thompson, published to the world the false, defamatory, and malignant statements authored by defendants. Hundreds of millions of people have already viewed the false and defamatory statements published by defendants, and given the timing of the defendants' article, which shows their malicious intent behind it, the overwhelming financial and reputational harm suffered by President Trump will continue to multiply. Well, I'm going to be honest, everyone's kind of still focused on the Epstein stuff, and this is kind of Epstein stuff, but they're mostly focused on, where's the Epstein list? That, I would argue, is what's really hurting him. It'd be very interesting if they try to argue, like, his polls are going down and try to blame it on them to get money, because Trump is saying they're still up, I believe, at this time, so that's going to be really interesting. Like, politically, he's not doing too hot. A lot of people soured after the Epstein thing, I'll put it that way. So here's the parties. I'm just going to kind of skip through that and get to the venue, statement of facts, and here is the order of operations. Here is what happened according to Trump's team. On July 15, 2025, the defendant sent an email to the White House press secretary, Caroline Leavitt, advising of Dow Jones' intent to publish an article which discussed a purported letter sent by President Trump to Epstein for Epstein's 50th birthday. The same afternoon, counsel for President Trump sent an email to defendants advising that the intended article was false and claiming that President Trump authored the purported letter, which he did not, and further warned Dow Jones to cease and desist from publicly disseminating or otherwise attributing such information because it was false and defamatory. I will also say that Trump claimed he's never drawn and doesn't send drawings, and then immediately the media's like, no, here's all the times he's done it, multiple times, here's signed images from around the same time period. So, but we'll see. None of the defendants responded to the email. I mean, if they believe it's true, yeah, they probably didn't. Instead, on July 17, 2025, defendants published or causing the publish of the author article on the defendants. Jeffrey Epstein's friends sent him body letters for a 50th birthday album. One was from Donald Trump. The article was published in the Wall Street Journal as an exclusive. However, since publication, defendants have widely disseminated to hundreds of millions of people worldwide. Yeah, that's what happens when you publish an exclusive. Therein, defendants falsely and maliciously stated that President Trump supposedly authored, drew, and signed a letter wishing Epstein a happy 50th birthday. Now, mind you, this is, I believe, before he got any of his charges. Just putting it out there. I believe this is before his charges. And we knew Trump knew Epstein, so it's not like it'd be crazy if he did send him a birthday message. Just a little weird with what they claim is contained in the letter, but if it's before the charges, and he claims he didn't actually know that side of it, then it could make sense to send it, but we'll continue. They want to talk about what's in it, or what's claimed to be in it. Defendants elaborate on their false, defamatory, unsubstantiated, disparaging claims against President Trump by claiming that he drew an outline of a naked woman, drew breasts on her, and signed his name below her waist, mimicking pubic hair. Yeah. Next, defendants further malign President Trump by wrongly and ludicrously contending that inside of the naked woman that he allegedly drew lies a typewritten note styled as an imaginary conversation between Trump and Epstein written in the third person. Now, I do want to say that there's been some weird things I've seen from like Trump people saying, why would he write in the third person? He writes in the third person all the time. He writes it in the third person on True Social. Also, there's a weird thing where they don't think he'd use the word enigma, which is weird considering he uses it multiple times in his past books, which I know are probably all ghost written. I'm assuming they are, but still, it's in there. This is the entirety of the imaginary conversation. So they have a copy of it that's being claimed. Remember, this is all claims. Voiceover, there must be more to life than having everything the note began. Donald, yes, there is, but I won't tell you what it is. Jeffrey, nor will I, since I know what it is. Donald, we have certain things in common, Jeffrey. Jeffrey, yes, we do, come to think of it. Donald, enigmas never age. Have you noticed that? Jeffrey, as a matter of fact, it was clear to me the last time I saw you. Donald, a pal is a wonderful thing. Happy birthday, and may every day be another wonderful secret. Despite these unsubstantiated claims, however, the article does not attach a reported letter, does not identify the reported drawing, nor does it show any proof that President Trump has anything to do with it. This could backfire if this letter exists, right? Because if the letter exists, they just publish it. It's going to be interesting, because either this is a very big lie with nothing backing it. I guess the scenario is it's a big lie with nothing backing it, and they're screwed, or it's going to come out that they have a letter, and it could be whether it's real or fake, or someone else wrote it on Trump's behalf and he didn't know what they did, whatever. Or I've already seen people push a conspiracy theory, so I'm going to mention it, that Rupert Murdoch was literally with Trump on Sunday, so maybe this is another scheme to give him a free win and basically give him a bribe through the legal system with a settlement. That one, just putting it out there in case you hear someone say it, it's already floating. Now, tellingly, the article doesn't explain whether the defense have obtained a copy of the letter, have seen it, had it described to them, or any other circumstances that would otherwise lend credibility to the article. That is because the reported letter is a fake, and the defendants knew it when they chose to deliberately defame President Trump. Oh man, it'd be really interesting if they're like, well, here's a copy, and there's another copy that's in the Epstein files. You can verify it there. On the one hand, the article states it wasn't clear how the letter with Trump's signature was prepared. And yet, on the other hand, the defendants passed off the false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements in the article as fact, falsely claiming without substantiation that President Trump is a friend, pal, or family of Epstein. Buddy, we've seen photos, right? Like, you could say you turned on him when you found out, right? We've seen the photos. Come on. Indeed, the article contains the following false statements that are defamatory per se. The letter bearing Trump's name is body, outline of a naked woman, hand drawn with a heavy marker. I like how hand drawn with a heavy marker is a negative, because I guess they're like, well, he drew to try to redirect that hurricane, right? Anyway, we'll continue on because it's just bolding things we've already read. Article contains the following statements. She turned to Epstein's family and friends. One of them was Donald Trump. Childhood pals, socializing with Trump. He often entertained at his Manhattan townhouse, Palm Beach, Florida home, and private Caribbean island. Despite the clear journalistic failures of due diligence and accuracy of the article, Dow Jones, at the discretion of its director and majority owner Murdoch, and News Corp, at the discretion of CEO Thompson, published the article to hundreds of millions of people. Notably, Murdoch and Thompson authorized publication of the article after President Trump put them both on notice that the letter was fake and non-existent. B, the article goes viral. So this is going to just be it going viral, people sharing it. The Lincoln Project, a known anti-Trump organization. Colin Rugg, a journalist with 1.8 million followers. Here we have a podcast host with 900,000 followers. Seth Abrams. Defendants continue to amplify the defamatory statements again the next day. Defendants are actively promoting the article. I mean, if they believe it's true, it's going to be if this is a true letter, this is probably the biggest story of possibly the decade that the Wall Street Journal comes out with, right? So it makes sense. If they're willing to back it, moreover, as of July 18, 2025, the article was #1 trending topic on X.com, also known as Twitter for normal people. I was just trying to see Ian Michael Corp. They're using that image. This is how you know, by the way, that you've got I don't know. Look, you didn't have to put all your little fucking. This is a screenshot of the whole screen. They didn't have to do that. This to me just screams unprofessional. Maybe it doesn't to you. To me, it just screams unprofessional. I put more effort than this into my stuff. It's crazy. Although these article transmission and social media posts and articles are only a fraction of the impression and engagement that have been generated by the article, the false, defamatory, disparaging, and inflammatory statements contained herein have been seen by hundreds of millions of people. And we'll just continue on. This is just going to be why this kind of boilerplate stuff, but here's the important thing. Wherefore, plaintiff Donald J. Trump demands judgment against defendants Dow Jones Company, and the Wall Street Journal, News Corp, Keith Rubin, all these people for damages, punitive damages, court costs, and other such releases the court deems just and proper, not to be less than, I told you, $10 billion. So now we wait, right? So either what happens is the Wall Street Journal settles, fires these people, and settles, or they're going to go, here's our proof, here's our evidence, here's everything we have, we want discovery, we're going into the Epstein proof through this. And you know what? If that's the plan, and they succeed, and they prove in a court of law that Trump was Epstein's, what was the wording they used at one point, was pal? If they could get that on the record, there becomes their actual #1 article from a decade. And the one that this is about becomes #2. But we don't know where it's going to go. Just it's really really interesting when you remember the fact that this is not like a left-leaning publication. And Trump tried to stop it. And it seems that no one thought it was defamatory, or at least no one in the chain of releasing it thought it was defamatory. I can't imagine none of them thought he wouldn't sue, because he sued for things like editing an interview of someone else, right? He sued because Kamala Harris's interview was edited when his own interview on the same company was edited. And he just recently did an interview on Fox with his own daughter-in-law, which is a whole ethical issue, that was also edited, right? Like, all interviews are edited. And they settled with him. And these settlements, if you go and look, a lot of it is they've been trying to buddy up to Trump. Some of them want mergers because, hey, sure, we give Trump X amount of money, but if we do a massive merger, we'll make even more money than that. So it's worth it. We've got to get the White House on our side because the government has to approve our massive merger that actually probably shouldn't be approved. But I don't know. I want to know what other people think, because yeah, he's right. Trump's team is right. They didn't release the letter. They didn't release the source. That doesn't mean they don't have it. And I will be amazed if they don't have it, because that would be the dumbest thing they could do, right? The dumbest thing they could do is put this out with no evidence, without being able to fully back it up in a court of law. And that's what I think makes it so interesting, because I think everyone's just waiting to see if they can. Because if they can, oh boy.